everyone. My name is Cheryl Petruk. I'm an instructor at Alpha Academy. I typically teach some of the HR-based courses within the HR faculty. So certainly I see some familiar names on our participants list, and if I've not had the pleasure of meeting you, so welcome today to our presentation where Dipankar and I will talk to you about presentation skills and the importance of why presentation skills are important and why you need to have a good understanding and some good background on those presentation skills. So I'm going to share my screen right now. We've put together a quick presentation, PowerPoint presentation for you so that you can see and hear and understand. So when we talk about education and learning, we want to do it in a way of do, show, and tell so that you can get a very varied way of learning. So right now we'll be going through a PowerPoint presentation as we talk about public speaking and how it can help you and what you need to know and why you need to know the public speaking and presentation skills for your journey at Alpha Academy and also for your journey outside of the educational realm of your life. But when you become part of the working world and you get your first job or you get a job where you need to have public speaking skills. So our agenda today is the why. Why do I need to know or have good PowerPoint or presentation skills? That will look at the technical aspects of Microsoft PowerPoint, the uses of Microsoft PowerPoint, and effective presentations for your assignments. Because those of you, especially in the HR side of the education, your education at Alpha, will be doing presentations for final grades or for part of your final assignment, especially in my classes for your this semester. So what do you need? Why do you need good presentation skills? Really important. One of the fundamental things is communication, and communicating takes very varied forms of giving that message from the sender to the receiver. And so presentation skills takes into consideration both the verbal and the nonverbal skills. And Dipankar will talk more about that later in the presentation, but I wanted to preface it saying, why do you need that? Because people not only see you, but they listen to you in the sharing of information that you're going to provide in your presentation. So we know that presentations are a form of communication, and what you're doing in the sharing of your communication is sharing your knowledge about a particular subject, and you're also sharing your passion, and you're looking at educating others in a way that they may not have the same level of knowledge of the subject matter that you do, but certainly you're giving them an opportunity to gain that level of knowledge and that level of understanding. One of the things that I want to talk about is sharing your passion. When you have a passion for a particular subject that you're talking about, people feel that. They feel and see how you embody the knowledge that you're sharing, or the topic that you're sharing, or the subject matter that you're sharing. And that passion is shared by you in how you communicate and how you present the information, and that can become contagious, and that can then stimulate people to want to learn more about the subject and be more open to learning about the subject that you are teaching or presenting about. So where do you start? How do you plan a presentation? What to include in your presentation? And how much is too much information? So really, where to start in your presentation? Well, you need to choose the topic of your presentation. And in some cases, that topic may be presented to you or given to you by your teacher or by your supervisor or manager that you work for. And so where you choose your topic of your presentation, you need to gain that understanding of that topic and the whole essence of what you're going to be presenting or talking about. Research the topic information, very important for you to know and understand the topic that you're presenting and become what I would call an SME or a subject matter expert, even if it's only for a short period of time or for a very small part of information. You need to know your information that you're presenting very well, and you need to know it intimately and become that subject matter expert. You want to plan your topic in what you want to communicate and how you want to communicate and what do you want to communicate. So you need to really sit down and plan out how, what, where, when, and why you're going to communicate to your audience. From the information that you research, you're going to pick out 10 key points or learnings that you would like to communicate from the research that you've done. And that will stimulate for you questions that may come about, or you will come up with questions that your audience may ask of you that you would want to address in your PowerPoint. So again, I'm going to say that you need to answer the questions of the 5 W's: the who, what, where, when, and most importantly, the why. Why do people need to know this information? Why do you have to share this information, or should you share this information? And why should people gain a better understanding from your presentation and the topic that you are presenting? You want to communicate with a variety of sources. Communication is not just done through talking, but it's done through pictures and video clips and different modalities. We all learn differently. Some people learn visually, some people are auditory learners, some people are kinesthetic learners and need to touch and feel what they're learning. So it's really important that you take all of this into consideration when putting your presentation together. And these modalities will all contribute to your audience learning and understanding. So knowing your subject matter, as I briefly said, you really need to become that subject matter expert, even for a very short period of time. You need to know the level of the audience that you're speaking to. And when I say that, you could be speaking, and I call it from the mailroom to the boardroom. You could be speaking to people from every level of the organization that you're with. And there will be a dichotomy of understandings and backgrounds that those people will have. So it's important that you incorporate that audience level and that knowledge of audience level within your presentation. Confidence is extremely important in your presentation. So show your confidence, dress for success, and be very confident in your knowledge. And that's refers back to becoming that subject matter expert for that short period of time for your presentation. So it's important that you exude confidence in your presentation. So dress for success, be on time, show people that you're very confident in who you are as a person and also who you are in presenting the information. Be prepared. Very, very important. That means practice, practice, practice. Read your script over, prepare a script, prepare cards or notes for yourself, prepare online notes within the presentation. Be confident, be prepared, and that means that you need to practice, practice, practice in many ways, shapes, and forms. And that's even by what you're going to wear. Make sure that you even have that planned out by practicing what you're going to wear. So put it on a day before you do your presentation so that you know what you're going to look like, so that you are confident in who you are. I always say when I dress up, I feel like $1 million. When I do my hair and I put my makeup on, I feel like $1 million. And that comes across to the people that you're presenting. You feel confident, you look confident, you will be confident. So I'm going to leave my portion of the presentation here today with this quote before Dipankar takes over from me, is that no sentence can be effective if it contains facts alone. It must also contain emotion or passion, image, logic, and promise. And this is a quote from Eugene M. Schwartz. So it's very important that you as a presenter not only present with emotion or passion. Images as pictures and videos provide a very good focus for your listener to understand the communication that you're communicating, logic through facts and figures and data, and your promise to ensure that you can communicate in the best possible way so that they have the best understanding of what your presentation is about. So I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague Dipankar, and he's going to talk to you about more areas of the presentation and presentation skills.
Perfect. Thank you, Cheryl. I think that's a perfect segue into our next part of the what do you call it, guys? Do I call it a class? Probably not. It's a workshop. So thank you. I can see Mukul, Bhumi, Arshdeep, Harmanjit, and Tarndeep being here, and a couple of other folks as well. I think some of you have not told your name, but that's okay. This is not a class. You don't get any class participation marks, but hopefully you'll gain something from this. So if you feel bored, there will be a few breaks. During my presentation, the technical part is always bored. So, many times boring. So if you pace your boredom accordingly, feel free to do that. But I think the important point here is, as Cheryl mentioned, your presentation is only as good as your preparation, number one. And the second part is that you need to include, you need to make sure that you're including emotion, passion, images, and all of these other constituents that she just talked about. But the point is, how do you do it, right? And there comes in the technical aspect. So we're going to go and do a quick poll. I think, can we do that? We'll do a quick poll just to get an assessment, a sense of what's your understanding of Microsoft PPT. So if you look at your screen, you'll see a little option, a little poll, a vote kind of come up on your screen. Tell me, those of you who are participating, where do you think film strip is seen? Which application? Do you think it's in Microsoft Word? Do you think it's in Image Viewer? Or do you think it's in PPT? No prize for guessing. So if anyone wants to vote in the next 15 seconds or so, it's okay. I've got one vote already. Thank you. 2. Okay, you guys are so smart. If this class is about presentation and Microsoft PPT, then how can it be? Well, I did not guess you'd be so smart, but okay, fantastic. So I've got, okay, one for Image Viewer. Okay, that's good. That makes it worthwhile. Okay, so I'm going to stop now. So as you can see, even in this small sample size, we have only had about 4 votes, right? 4 of you participated, but even in that, if you take this as a base, 25% of you may not be sure about your Microsoft PPT skills, right? And therein comes in the value of attending a workshop like this. So again, thank you for participating, but that's where I think the emphasis is on understanding some of the technical aspects. So let's try and understand a little bit about the technical aspects of Microsoft PPT, and we'll try to keep it engaging. We want to leave room for questions, so we'll pace ourselves accordingly. If any time you feel bored or you feel like warning, just take a break. Okay, you should be okay. Let's take a look at. Okay, Cheryl, can I just take control of the screen for a second? I'm just going to share my screen.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, perfect. So you guys can look at, you can see my screen now. Nothing's going to change much, but just for the sake of everyone. Okay, so you can see my screen here. And now we're going to move to the next slide. If I can. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so broadly, without going into too much detail, if you think you know these 6 terms which are on your screen right now, you're good. Okay, if you know what's the presenter mode, so right now, for example, for my PPT, I'm in presenter mode and I can see this. You can do a quick little thing here and it takes you to that other system. So if I do this, you can see my screen, show presenter view, and then I move on to this system here. So now if I have notes here, for example, I can add anything. I can say add a poll or no notes or whatever. I can see that view. The viewers or my audience will be only seeing this part of the screen. If I want to zoom a particular section, I can do that, and then you only see that part of the screen, right? So you get the idea. If I want to see all the slides, I can do that, and basically this is my view, and accordingly so on and so forth. But if we don't want that, then that's fine. We go back into our routine normal view, and I can just close this and basically go to the end of my slideshow, and this is where I'm back. Okay, so the reason for sharing this part is that I want to show you exactly what the slide master looks like and the hyperlinks and all. Many of you may know this, so I'm going to not probably go into a lot of details, but just so for a basic knowledge. So in the view format, so this is called the window, right? This is called the ribbon right on top. And under each ribbon, you have these tabs: home, insert, draw, design, and so on. And within each tab, you've got these functions. So if you go to the view function right here, You see these different options here. So the second option here is called the slide sorter. And this is again, the slide master is right here. I can change all my slides by just sticking on this one. We don't want to do it. And then the other thing here is the view master. So you see this little thing here, it's a slide sorter. So for example, if I wanted to move my slides around, if I wanted to do that, I could very easily paste it. So these are all little tools which come in extremely handy for your purposes, for your use at any particular time. Okay, let's go back and now look at something else. So the hyperlinks, here's a hyperlink right here. You know how to do it. If you don't, then that's an important skill, because during your presentation, you might need to show your audience or your professor or the other students how to take a look at something that you want to showcase. And the hyperlinks is a fantastic tool to do that. Then we've got something known as smart art. So if you go to insert, you've got these options here, shapes, icons, smart art right here. As Cheryl mentioned, you will need Microsoft PPT for representing a lot of your data. So these tools come in really handy here. So for a process, for list, for cycle hierarchy, and various other tools, you can use these different assets. I call them assets because in any corporate presentation, in any business presentation, they're extremely, extremely valuable. And I think, as Cheryl again mentioned, many of you might be from the human resources focused program, and you'll find it extremely useful as well, especially if you're talking about organization hierarchy. Okay. Charts, of course, you know, some of you may know. So you have these options here. You can use this to represent graphs under again. So go to the ribbon tab, you see the insert, sorry, ribbon, and then you see the insert tab. Under the insert tab, you have these different functions. One of these functions is called a chart. You basically use that to represent data. Again, you've got different options depending on what you need to represent. Again, we are not going to go into too many details, but for the sake of everyone, like those of you who know and who don't, for those of you who know, it's like a quick revision. For those of you who don't, it's more like a quick peep into what possibly can be done using the technical skills of MS PPT. And these are the very basics. If you want to animate something, again, quickly we'll do a little skill here. So for example, if I want to make sure that my slide shows up only at a particular in a particular format, I can basically do an emphasis one. So if you see what happens here, so now I'm going to show full screen and see what happens here. I'm just going to click this, and so this is what, right? You see a little change here and makes it an important feature for grabbing your attention and for emphasizing. Now, beyond these aspects, there's also something that you should be familiar with, and that's the anatomy of a slide. So typically, a well-represented slide, as you can see, this is from a consulting firm at Kearney, has different components. There's a running head. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take you guys to see an example here, and then they'll give you an idea. So this is an example. If you see right in this one, right up here, the introduction part, that's your running, we call it the running head. So it changes depending on what you're trying to show in that slide, okay? Then the second one where it says, I'm sorry, the second one where it says St. Lawrence is a good college, that's called the lead line. So that takes the viewer, your audience, through the slide deck. Now, it's said that if you combine all the lead lines, you'll get a good story. So for example, that itself will be a paragraph, and all of these sentences in a good line, in a good lead line, if you combine them, that actually unfolds the entire story. This second one below the lead line is called a subtitle. So for example, in the subtitle is used to elaborate a little bit more on your lead line. So if I'm saying St. Lawrence is a good college, why am I saying it? It's because St. Lawrence provides opportunities to international students. So that becomes my subtitle. On the left-hand side, you see here, your left and my right hand here, an example. So we call this the flag. Depending on what you want to show your audience, again, you might use that or may not use it. And then there's the chief content area, which is showed in kind of a bluish hue here. Below this is called the tombstone, and it's practically called the tombstone because it's right at the bottom of all of this. It's beneath the slide deck. It's hidden, just like a tombstone. Tomb is hidden, kind of under the soil. So this is again hidden. Usually, this is used to emphasize on something. So in this slide, for example, I might say that overwhelming majority of instructors appreciate the opportunity to teach international students, and I'm referring to St. Lawrence and Alpha College, and I use that in my tombstone. And then the bottom, absolute bottom, is used for notes and sources. So in this case, I have used here as a fictional 2019 survey of faculty, and that becomes my source. So this is how a good anatomy of a slide looks like. Just before we move on to the next part, just remember that typically a MS PPT can be used for 3 different things. It can be used as a leave behind, it can be used for a meeting, it can be used for a presentation. Now, without going into the details of all of this, which you can, I'm surely read on the recording, we are talking about the presentation. So remember, in a presentation, as Cheryl said, the focus of the audience is not just on your slides, but also on you. Don't let the slides, usually that's what it said, don't let the slides take over the control. The control is in your hands. The slides are only meant to be an aid to you. The audience can focus either on the presenter in this case or on the written material. So make sure you do that. You bring that element into your presentation. Some of the quick points that you should know when it comes to a good presentation is that for any presentation to be effective, there has to be an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. Think of this as if you as kind of a dating or a networking event. So when you meet somebody, you're trying to gauge if that person is worth your attention or not. So you kind of look at that from an introduction. The same thing happens in a presentation. It's generally said in business that you have 15 seconds to grab the audience attention, and that 15 seconds is the initial introduction part. If you can get your hook right, then that's when you get the attention. And same with your assignments. Some of your assignments might be a little bit more elaborate and detailed, but if you want to get the attention and take the attention of the audience, you've got the initial 15 seconds, and that's in the introduction. After the introduction comes, of course, the body, where you give the content, all of that. And remember always that all of this has to be followed by a conclusion. So the conclusion is really like, so what? Okay, so that's important. Typically, any good presentation or a PPT should have an introduction part to your presentation and body and a conclusion. Some key skills, and my dog can learn this, I guess, but important for it's not as easy as you'd imagine. So the first thing, this is the most difficult one right now. For example, even though I'm talking to you guys and I know you're out there, I'm not all the time looking at the camera, right? And because I'm not looking at the camera, I'm not maintaining eye contact with you guys. And same thing happens in a actual physical environment. You have to keep looking at the people, otherwise you lose the connect. So make eye contact. That's number one rule. Number two, there are postures. So for any particular presentation, depending on what you want to convey, there are 6 key postures we talk about. These are all tried and tested. These are taken from the Harvard Business Review, so you can trust these guys. These are different sources you can use depending on what you want to convey. Research has proven that a box-like approach is considered trustworthy and trustful. If you hold if your hand gestures are like holding a ball, that shows command, like what I'm doing right now. It shows a dominant feature. If you build a pyramid kind of a thing like this, that shows self-assuredness. It shows that you're relaxed, you're not tensed, you're pretty relaxed. That's a pyramid hands approach. And then you've got a wide stance. I cannot show you that because you can only see my my introduction and my body here, not my. So wide stance is again is a posture which is considered when you want to show that you are in control. A palms up approach, something like this, it indicates openness. As you can imagine, I'm open, I'm honest, I'm accepting. So this is again very important and critical when you're trying to sell something, for example, okay, an honest and accepting approach. And then another one is, and a lot of leaders do this approach, you can see something like a hands down, a palms down approach. It shows strength, it's strong, it shows assertion, something like this. Okay, it's almost like calming people, right? So this is called a palms down approach. Again, it's usually seen as a sign of strength and authority. So this is some of the key skills. This is not easy, my friends, to master, but you have to, once you know them, you can practice, as Cheryl said, practice, practice, and practice, and try to use them in your presentations as you go along. Now, this is a fun activity for you guys. If just use the chat function in the screen, on your screen, and if you can identify any of these real life characters or people, let us know. You just use the chat function and think, if you think the person in A, if you know who that is, just let us know in the chat function. So this person in the A screen or on the image in A is using a palms down approach, right? So you can imagine it is somebody who's very strong and someone who's really assertive. Yeah, I see a couple of responses there already. Fantastic. And then in B, you see Steve Jobs, no prizes for guessing, and he's using the typical, he was a master of that skill, holding the ball approach. Okay, this was his way of showing dominance and command. And then of course we have Oprah Winfrey in screen 3. And Oprah, as you know, is considered to be a very honest path breaker. She is really a power force in the field of entertainment, and she really uses the palms up approach to show herself as honest and accepting, and she has used it very strongly in her professional life. So all of these are just examples. Let me quickly take a look at the chat here. So did you guys get it right? For A, yeah, okay, okay. Mukul responded. You got 2 right, Mukul. Thank you. So Obama is A and B is Steve Jobs. Fantastic. C is Oprah Winfrey again, and not many students, international students do not seem to know, but that's okay. Good job. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mukul. Okay, good. Moving along. So now very quickly, the other thing that you need to remember is gesture. Now, anyone who can tell me what's the difference between gesture and posture, I think you know what you're talking about. Okay, so if you think you know the difference between a gesture and a posture, let me know. But the third important point is to be able to use gesture to emphasize your message. Okay, I don't see a response yet, so I'm just going to tell you guys anyways what that means in a second. And last, but more again, second last, I believe is important to eliminate filler words. I'm guilty of that. I use things like, you know, or a lot in my presentation, and that is not a good thing to do. Master presenters will eliminate things like that, and they absolutely eliminate filler words. Okay, that just shows that you're in confidence and you know what you're talking about. Take time to pause. Even right now, when I'm talking to you guys, when I'm talking to you guys out there, I'm see my pace. I'm not pacing myself well. I should take time to pause. Now, see what happened? Your attention naturally came to my talk now because you're like, okay, where's there silence? And people who are masterful of the representation, they know how to pause. They know how to stop between their messages. So, for example, okay, so what I did right now, I paused for a little bit. And now I'm going to give you the example that I want you to pay attention to. And this is something that you should be familiar with, especially if you're making a presentation for in an assignment. And if you want the instructor to really listen to you and, you know, maybe towards the conclusion of your presentation, then make sure you pause yourself. And you might say something like, so in conclusion, and then say, this is what you mean. You know what I mean? This is important. Varying your pace, again, masters of presentation would do that. They know how to when to be fast and when to be slow, and this is again a skill that you can only learn over a period of time. See, this is not easily done. You need to do a lot of practice. Because we're in the COVID times and because you will be doing a lot of online presentations now, Cheryl already mentioned that in most of my classes too, students, whether individually or in a group, need to make a presentation because we are trying to arm you for the real world. This is not about your college. This is not about your passing grades or your online quizzes. This is about you making a livelihood and finding a good career for yourself. And that's why I think we are stressing especially on things like your presentation skills. Okay. So in a virtual world, and this is going to be the norm in the future, you need to know some things which will help you present effectively. Typically, and this is where your nonverbal communication comes in, and I'm guilty of this too. Right now, what you're looking at your screen, the words don't always mean the meaning that we want to convey. And this is where nonverbal communication comes in. Without spending too much time on this, I want to emphasize that 93% of our communication is based on nonverbal communication. So the gestures I'm doing right now, things with my hand movement, and that's, by the way, a difference between gesture and posture. Posture relates to your movements of the entire body. Gesture relates to movements of your body parts. So when I move my hands like this is gesture. If you look at my entire body, that's my posture. So anything that is based not on words but based on non-verbal, non-word based communication, that communicates 93% of what we want to convey. And therefore you need to be a master of non-verbal communication. Things like your gesture, things like your posture, things like your facial expression, your gaze, and something Cheryl mentioned earlier in her talk when she said that you need to portray confidence and you need to prepare, you need to dress for success. Remember, all of that too is part of your communication. That falls under your non-vocal, non-verbal communication. As you can see right here, it says outward appearance, physical characteristics, your clothes. That conveys a lot about who you are. So if you think about Steve Jobs, because some of you know, he would always come in a pair of jeans and a shirt like this. I'm not Steve Jobs, by the way. And the idea was he was talking about innovation and technology, right? On the other hand, if you want to be a professional, you can dress accordingly. This slide will also be available as part of your workshop, so feel free to take a look at this. And if you have any questions, you can, of course, get in touch with us. Again, as I said, 93% of your communication is based on the tone of your voice and on your body language. So remember that it's extremely important, especially when you're making a presentation virtually online. How can you master nonverbal communication? A lot of different ideas. First of all, find somebody that you can ask for honest feedback. Absolutely be aware of yourself, but most importantly, again, as Cheryl mentioned earlier, and we cannot stress on this enough, practice, practice, practice. If you want to be a master of nonverbal communication, one of the cool tricks, as I call it, to do is record yourself and then turn off the video and see how your body language conveys, what your body language conveys, what your gesture conveys. And that, my friends, essentially is a summary of the workshop. Always remember that whether you're speaking to just one person or you're speaking to an audience of 1,000, you are in public speaking mode. You are talking to the public, whether it's one person or 1,000, you're always public speaking. Okay, so good luck for your next assignment. I'm sure those of you who attended, I'm sure there's a reason why you did. I'm hoping that you are here for, gaining some perspectives into how you can do better. So we would really like to, I think, Cheryl, let me know, but I think we'd really like to open it up for any questions at this stage. So let us know if you have any questions or comments, and if we can help in any other way.